Welcome to the Bhakti Talk Podcast, where we discuss the spiritual path through the wisdom ways and practices of our beloved Guru, Swami Premodaya. We are your hosts, Swami Sky, and I am Ananda Dev. The Bhakti Talk Podcast is presented by the International Centers of Divine Awakening. Subscribe on our webpage, YouTube, or any of the major podcasting sites. Be sure to also give us a follow on all social media at Bhakti Talk Podcast. In today's episode number 3, keeping count, we have a very special guest, Shomari Dev. Shomari Dev is an advanced disciple of Swami Premodaya, the administrator of ICODA Brussels, ICODA's yoga teacher, and a former professional dancer.
Yay. And there's Shomari Dev.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome, our beloved Guru sister. It's really, really wonderful to have you. I'm so glad that you are our first guests.
Yeah, I'm honored.
So today I'm very excited for this particular podcast because I find Guru Bhakti Yoga very fascinating. And we actually titled the episode Guru Bhakti and Yoga. Just to be cute, Guru Bhakti Yoga is a particular practice, but at the same time, specifically yoga, I'm very fascinated with. There's a lot of yoga practitioners. And I'm quite fascinated with your personal story because we were talking the other day, and I know you very well now, and I'm very lucky and pleased and blessed to have you as a Guru sister. And I adore you. And your path, your life story, your work, your spiritual practice has always included the body. It's always, you have a long practice as a certified yoga practitioner, certified yoga teacher, as ICODA's yoga teacher and teaching outside of ICODA as well. But you're also a formal professional dancer. And I find it very fascinating that much of your life has involved a very precise discipline of physical practice. And I would love to hear more about your story. Maybe you can start with as a dancer and in the body and in movement and what that's meant to you in your spiritual practice.
It's my pleasure. So basically, I started dancing already when I was 10 years old. And it's a daily practice, and it really starts immediately with a discipline. You have to be on time, you have to wear your right clothes, your hair needs to be tight, you have to stand still, no scratching if it itches. So it's already from the years of 10, I had to learn how to be disciplined. And you really have to dedicate yourself. You have to go for it, give 100%, nothing less. And I started with ballet technique, so it was really based on shapes. And while growing older, I loved the precision and the details and the discipline that it gave me, and I just loved dancing in any way. But I was also very curious in other styles of dance, in improvisation or other creations and new things, and so I started experimenting with other styles and more modern and contemporary dance. And I noticed that I moved from doing shapes, shaping my body perfectly, to finding out what is between the shapes, to really discovering more the movement and then the fullness and then engaging a full body. And so it's always been a journey that needed discipline, but also it started going on a path where more is possible, more is available. And so that curiosity really brought me more to the inner practice. And while being on stage, it makes you aware of what you're doing. You have to be really precise, you have to be aware. But also, I was questioning a lot, like, what am I doing? Why am I on stage? Everyone is looking. What do I want to say? How do I say it? So this really helped in becoming more aware and finding out for myself what I was wanting and how can I be more present on stage, how can my movement be more full, how so in that journey, going from ballet training, I moved into, thanks to a very great colleague, I moved into yoga practice. They brought me along. They said, "This is great, come along." And I wasn't so sure the first time
Sure.
because it was a Bikram yoga class, so it was very, very intense,
Hmm.
sweating and mirrors and someone talking like the whole time, the whole class through. And I had never done yoga before. And this is Bikram yoga is a hatha yoga. It's asanas. It's very physical, and it's done in an incredible heat. And but what surprised me most is the teacher was constantly talking, and in my mind, I had it like most people that don't know much about yoga. I hadn't read about yoga. I just went and experimented. And in my mind, it was sitting quietly and peace and silence. And that was not that.
Well, that's an excellent point, because you're already describing something so beautifully that's absolutely true, which is a physical discipline, especially in the form of practice, spiritual practice like hatha yoga,
Mm,
um, which we adore. You know, our beloved Guru Swami Premodaya really adores and admires the impact of hatha yoga, specifically Sivananda yoga, who's massively responsible for yoga coming to the West through
mhm,
his guru Satchidananda, or through his disciples Satchidananda, who is a pioneer of bringing hatha yoga to the West. There, I mean, yoga wouldn't be in the West the way that it is without Sivananda and Satchidananda. Um, no question.
mm,
My first introduction to yoga was also hatha yoga. But I want to get back to your point.
mhm,
Um, it's incredible how that physical discipline, and certainly the practice of yoga, which appears to be an outward bodily practice,
mhm,
reveals the inward. It
mm,
reveals what's going on inside. You're
mm,
so bodily focused that your awareness increases on
mm.
your internal focus. So it is, even though it seems like an external practice, it's an internal practice. I mean, yoga itself means union, so there is no external
Yeah.
and internal practice. It is just a singular practice. I mean, that's part of the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I discovered, Sky. When I first started, I really did it for the physicality of it, because as a ballet dancer, my body was trained in a very specific shaping, always turning the body out and always having, very specific shapes. And I missed grounding, and the yoga is very grounding. So that was a good physical practice for me. But then, so I started for the physical part of it. But then during the practice, the more I practiced, the more I noticed what's going on in my mind. And the more I noticed how I can concentrate, how I can focus, and how focus, concentration in longer practice became a meditation. And I became so focused and strong in it that it really showed me so much of mind and then of total let go. And I was surprised because that just came. It was through the body, working through the body to really first get to the mind, and then even to get to a total let go, and that you really feel at the end of a class like I have no body. And that's beautiful. It was so surprising.
Yes, yes, it is. I
It's
remember. Yep, please.
Yeah, it's also a great explanation you gave. It's because it's very scientific, it seems, like the practice you went through also as a dancer. And yoga is also a science. And hearing you talk about the scientific way in which you practice dance and then also brought it to yoga, the
Mm,
discipline, and how, because bhakti is also, it's about love, it's about singing, it's about dancing. And I think when what most people think of when they hear dancing, they think about being free. But then when I hear you speak, it's like through this discipline, of course, discipline is freedom. So, yeah, uh, th- that's what you basically stated.
And I got to not clarify, but I got to expand. I got to expand
Mm.
upon, because it's such a beautiful example of our beloved guru. Because we're all we should just say, for anybody that might be
Yeah.
listening or tuning in, we all have the same guru. Our beloved
Mm,
guru is Bodhisattva Sri Swami Premodaya,
mm,
known as Swami Premodaya, or you'll hear us refer to him as Swamiji or Guruji or Gurudev. And it's such a joy to be able to share in and experience the beauty of our own beloved teacher. And I completely lost my train of thought
Well,
in,
discipline
in
is
bhakti.
discipline is freedom. That is also one of the
That's
teachings
it.
of
That's
our
it.
guru. Yeah.
That's what. Thank you so much. That's exactly. I got carried away in the aroma of the sweet aroma of talking about the guru, and I forgot the point I wanted to make, which is what our Guruji has so beautifully put, that a lot of people think freedom is doing anything you want whenever you want. Well, that's the freedom we all have. The problem is we're just carried away and breathe. It's like if you just eat cake endlessly, it doesn't give you the nutrients you actually need to function. So everybody has discipline. Everybody lives discipline. Otherwise you die. You do put the right clothes on for the right environment. You do have to eat and drink. There are disciplines, but discipline has become kind of a very negative word in Western culture, because it's meant to be like the nuns rapping the knuckles in class for you acting up. I'm gonna discipline you. But no, we're talking about the freedom through discipline. It's being discipline of your mind so that you can choose rather than your conditioning, or what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, rather than making your life chaos and crazy because you're just blown about by all emotions and feelings of the moment. It's maturing and having the discipline so you can actually live freely as yourself, so that you're choosing, so that you're living the life you're deciding, rather than your ego or your patterning or your conditioning. So it's literally, discipline is a part of any and all spiritual paths, and even more so, discipline is already part of a human life. Otherwise, driving would be very difficult. Even India has discipline in driving. So I just wanted to make those comments on discipline, because part of the beauty of your story is a demonstrable example of how discipline has brought you to such gems.
And discipleship.
And discipleship. Yeah.
Definitely.
I love Guruji's comment that disciple is the same thing as discipline, just a couple different letters. So it's just the same.
And also, maybe something you can expand on, Shomari. Literally, going for a yoga teacher training in Los Angeles brought you to your guru. So
We're running
Yes.
ahead. We'll let you
yeah,
get back to your story.
Well, to get back to my story,
We get
starting
excited. We want to
starting
hear.
starting with yoga, I actually, at that time, I was very skeptical about everything, about the world and how it functioned, and everything that's going on. And I wasn't a believer. I wasn't part of any religion. I'm still not, but I wasn't really into spiritual books. I was very, well, you can call it sober, but that's not really, I mean, I just not reading any spiritual books. I was not going to any spiritual meetings or satsangs. I didn't have a guru. I just started yoga, and this yoga practice seemed to work for me. And I started to notice something shifting, and there is something more that was, there is, but I called it energy. Like, there is energy. I recognize that, that's something. We breathe air, we don't see it, it's, and scientists recognize it's air, but there's still a lot of things that scientists don't recognize. And I started to notice there is something more that they are not saying. So that was through all these experiences of yoga classes and yoga practice, and noticing the shift in the meditation, even though I wasn't aware that I was doing meditation at that time. Um, and so from there, I had this openness, but I was still not busy with it or focused on it. But then at one point, we had our first son was born, and I had a break in my dance career. Um, and I wanted to go back into moving, and I started back my yoga practice. And the new yoga studio in Brussels, because I lived in Brussels at that time, they wanted a new teacher. And I had been practicing the yoga for years, because I started practicing hatha yoga in 2000. And then it was around 2005. In the meantime, I had already practiced also many different kind of yogas. So I was doing Ashtanga, Iyengar, Yin yoga, many, many different things, shadow yoga. And I noticed that each style had benefits. Like each style could, if you're open, if you come open-minded, if you listen, if you really, you can use it to your own practice. There's just different ways of doing it, but it's really the same. Yoga, union.
Yeah, I remember the first time after a Shivananda yoga class in Los Angeles, and I remember somebody telling me, "Well, there's a lot of your emotions are really kept in your hips.
Oh,
There's so many emotions that are stored in your hips." And I'm mid-20s. I'm a Midwestern guy. I played ice hockey, 20 something years. I'm a guy coming from having a mohawk. You're telling me my emotions are stored in my hips? I was like, what are you talking about? And then as I matured, and as yoga was a practice, it's not so much a practice for me now, but there's two periods where yoga was an intense focus. And I can't believe how absolutely accurate that is. It's like, and then the arrogant position of, a 20-year-old thinking that, whatever, but just how absolutely accurate the science of yoga is, that you can actually trace to where the body stores emotion and then move that emotion, or move a blockage, in an energetic blockage in the body. And so when you when you commented, it just reminded me of how accurate that actually is. Yeah, you store a lot of emotions in the hips, so when you do some hip clearings or hip openings, emotions come out. So
yeah, and heart openers, it really works. It's amazing all the effects these postures have. And then also you have the asanas, but you also have the breath work with it, the pranayamas, and it really cleanses. You can really feel it. Like it's science. It's old. It's 3,000 years old science. It's not just some story. It really works. The postures really have that specific benefits that help on many levels, not just the physical one, but also the emotional one, the spiritual. Like it really does a full work, and of many levels we're not aware at first. That's why I thought I'm just going to go for a physical practice, and then find some quiet. But it's nice discovery.
and for a lot of people, that is where it starts. It
Yeah,
does start as
yeah,
at least it's not the gym and more noise. But yoga was never intended as this ancient science. It was never intended to be a exercise program, as
yeah.
far as what do they call it, for vanity muscles. It's not a routine to have a vanity body.
Yeah, while teaching, I had we're skipping later, but while teaching, I noticed a lot of people come for that. They think I'm going to do some yoga classes, and then I'll have the top model body. That's Oh,
And
that's
we support all spiritual seekers and all spiritual paths. And I love what Swami Premodaya, our beloved guru, says about how he honors all gurus and all spiritual paths. And for some people, that's how it starts. So
yeah.
we never hold judgment, but we also at the same time honor the sacred. And sometimes it's pretty hard when it becomes just marketing, when they've taken something that is a sacred spiritual practice and it is turned primarily into marketing and vanity. That does tend to weigh heavy on the heart because you really know what people are missing.
Yes, but it's also really beautiful to see how this can shift and how this can change just by
Yeah.
doing practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, with this opportunity to go for yoga teacher training, I was like, well, yeah, of course. That sounds great. It's the perfect timing. I think I need a break from dancing anyway because I became a mom. And I checked in with my partner and I said, well, here's the thing. I can go to LA for 9 weeks, but I won't do it without you because I spent the first year of our son's life with him a lot of time. And I was like, I'm not ready to leave you behind for 9 weeks and not see your first steps. And just to miss you for 9 weeks would be too much. So we agreed that we go together. And I was very lucky. It worked out
And
work-wise.
that's so to go together for this 9-week teacher training was
Yes.
to Los Angeles, from
To Los
Brussels
Angeles.
to Los
Yes.
Angeles.
Yes. So I took my man and our son, and we went to LA for 9 weeks.
Yeah, and the man she's referring to, that's Ananda Dev. That's me.
Yes.
It just becomes weird. not to add that for people who don't know us. So
We're
yes,
gonna do a surprise reveal.
yes,
Surprise! A surprise ending that everybody knows.
yeah.
It's
So-
actually something I'd like to talk about later on because you guys are married and you've been together. I don't know how many years have you guys been together now?
20 this year.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Good thing he knows that.
And actually we got married on that trip when we were in LA.
Yeah.
Actually, that was also happening.
Wait a minute, I didn't know that part.
Ah.
So I want to continue your story and your yoga path, your path
Yes.
and your yoga journey, as they say. But I would like to leave some time at the end. I'd love to talk about because I think it's very interesting, and I think it's also helpful for some people to hear what it's like to be married and on a spiritual path. Because you both are very devoted to spirituality and awareness and growing, continually growing in consciousness, all the ways you can say it. So I think that's very interesting. But I also just want to say, so then we'll go back to, I want to hear what you want to continue your story. I'll also say I actually wanted that to be last because it's not the most important thing. I think it's so fascinating, anybody's spiritual path. It's very fascinating that you guys have traveled individually and together. And I want to honor your partnership. But what I really adore is you as Shomari Dev and your path, and you as Ananda Dev and your path. And it's just fascinating that you have it's like a 2-car path. But that's one of the things that I love about Swami Premodaya and the International Centers of Divine Awakening is that it's always your individual path. It's your path. Our mission is one of our taglines, but you have to walk it. So it often gets confused. People think like it's so we're so close and we're so intertwined, but you guys have traveled it so beautifully because it's also about the closeness of the people you're journeying with. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, and to add to that, it is absolutely an individual path, and it's also my honor to be able to witness from close by everything Shomari is sharing now with us, how she got to yoga and what yoga did for her. I knew a bit about it, but hearing her speak about it now, it's amazing. It's yeah, you said it really, really, really well. Also, having a body focused background, how that is for you, absolutely the way. I know you also went into other uh, physical therapy, body based things. um, can you say also a bit more about those?
Mhm. Well, are you talking about, well, Reiki I did later, and but I also did some other techniques, where you slow down, there's some Alexander techniques, and then some Feldenkrais techniques, and those techniques already, the going slower is a very different approach, going from the inside of the body instead of from, compared to the ballet technique, the image you create. um
Yeah, I
it's
just
it
wanted.
Yeah.
No, you just have a very, very and it's probably because you started so early. I know it is sometimes difficult to realize for you how big your actual physical knowledge is, the physical knowledge you have of your own
Mhm.
body, but also of other bodies, bodies in space, because you were a dancer, but you were also a choreographer. So then
Yeah.
that it's about bodies in space, and this whole connectivity. It it seems like you come from the physical side, like you said, going into the inside. And I just loved hearing you talk about that, and I just want you to continue to talk about that.
Okay. Well, I think I heard you say now that I can see a lot in other people's bodies. And I think, yes, that is part of starting that practice, that physical practice really early, and starting from shapes and how the body is shaped, can be shaped, different bodies. And you also learn from a very young age to look at bodies, because a big part of learning the movement is copying. That's how you start. So you start to copy a shape, but that means you have to look at the shape. What does it look like? And you copy that, and then you see other people copying that. And I've noticed during my dance school period that it really helped to look at people. That this was something also they encouraged, like sit down and look what you see, what is going straight, what is going crooked, what is going too fast, too slow, are they together, are they? So you learn to look in different ways. And then they also learn you, for example, how your body relates to other dancers and how you relate to space. So you become very aware already of all these different levels of the physical body, not just the shape, but also how do I relate with my partner in space, how do I relate to the public, how do I, where am I placed on stage? And so they learn you to look forward, but to see what's going on right here. And so it's also, the vision is trained very differently. And then all from training so intensely, you have to take care of your body as well. So what we often did is we would start massaging each other, because I did that movement too many times. So your classmate is going to massage you a little bit, and then you discover no higher, no lower. So already from an early age, you're touching other bodies, you're trying to treat and trying to see, okay, then we have to do the counter movement. And you discover a lot just by talking to each other, by looking at each other. And so that physical knowledge is built up from when you're 10. Um,
So this is fascinating to me. This is why I'm so fascinated, because you're also describing,
mm,
without any knowledge, without any indication, without like a mentor or something like that, you're describing what a yoga teacher must develop.
mhm,
So I find that incredible. So you're describing this. So I love Ananda Dev's version of what he's saying to you is like, hey, you have such a a wealth, an authority, such a vision for this. And then you're describing as a child the situation that would be very helpful for a yoga teacher to have. And so I do want to go back to, now you're going to Los Angeles to have your yoga teacher training, because this what you're developing in childhood that then ended up being in your yoga practice, I'm sure was absolutely applied as a yoga teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And I really also had a very clear motivation to do this training, because I firsthand noticed that this works. This has such benefits on so many levels. I was more clear in my head. I could be more aware of things. Um, it was so good, that yoga practice, and then, discovering like there is more. Of course, I felt attracted to go and do this training. And I wanted to share this. I was like, if I can get so much out of this, then I want other people to get this too. So that was my motivation to really go to the training, to learn how can I pass this on and how can I give this to someone else. And of course, not everyone is ready or open to receive or willing, or, people come in different stages in their life with different bodies, from different backgrounds. It doesn't matter, but sometimes people are not ready yet, and sometimes they are, and you can really give them and give them this door, show them this door. That's all you do, really. You show them the door, and then
and this more that you were getting out of your yoga practice that inspired you to take the teacher training, because Brussels was looking for a new teacher. The something more, you're referring to the meditative qualities, the awareness of your own mind working. I just want to make sure that that's being said, and I am understanding you. You're saying the something more was this physical practice is giving me spiritual insight, awareness, meditative qualities. I'm experiencing, I don't want to say too many words, because I want to hear what you have to say. I'm just excited.
Yeah. One of the things that it really developed in me too was gratitude. Like I became much more grateful for life, for the moment, for anything. So it really developed more gratitude in me. And I think that was also one of the things that was so beautiful to recognize, that I was like, oh, this is good. That felt really good to do. Yeah. But at the same time, I was still at not totally yet into the spiritual. I started to recognize things, but I was still very wanting to stay realistic, wanting to, I didn't use the word God. I didn't, there was no talk about the divine. It was really still holding back. But I sensed there is something there.
Yeah. If you say holding back, I'll take your word for it. But also, it might not have just arrived quite yet in a way that you could tap into.
Yeah. The recognition.
Holding back usually means I see this, I know this, and I'm gonna.
Okay.
But you're not. How I hear it is, I want to give you the credit, because I don't hear that you're holding back. I hear that your curiosity is growing, and it's all, becoming. Holding back is something we tend to do once we know it's the right thing for us, and then we hold back. But you're saying you're describing somebody who's not holding back, who's going all in.
Exactly. But I thank you. The good words, the better words are, I was just in the beginning of the path.
Sure. That makes more sense, because I don't hear that you're holding. Anybody who's like, I feel this call, I'm headed to the call, I'm going to go do a 9-week course. That doesn't sound like somebody holding back. Holding back is, I really know I should take this 9-week course, and I'll see about it next year.
No, I went for it immediately. That was clear.
Yeah. That's not holding back. That's going for it. So you go to Los Angeles. You have your husband, or I guess you weren't married yet.
And yet, no, my
So
partner.
you had your partner and your son with you, and you went to Los Angeles for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us about that training, or tell us about that period?
Yes. So the training was very intense. Ananda took care of our son, Loka. And I was already gone at 6:30 a.m., I think. Yeah, early, or 6 a.m. And I came home 11 p.m., sometimes midnight, sometimes later. So it was really, really full days. We had 2 full yoga classes, 2 hours in the, what was it? It's 40 degrees Celsius, but in Fahrenheit,
It's hot.
it's
Yeah,
very
100,
hot,
110.
110. And there's like 350 people in the room. Like, it's a lot of people doing the same posture at the same time. It's intense. It's beautiful. You know, this energy, everyone doing that same posture and going into that focus is beautiful, but intense. And then we're getting classes from doctors and anatomy classes and so on and so on. And then at one point, Bikram told us to read the book of Shivananda, right?
Yogananda.
Correct.
Yogananda, yeah, autobiography of a yogi.
Exactly.
Yogananda.
Autobiography of a yogi. And so I asked Ananda, well, if you have time, could you go and get the book? Because I've never read it. I'd be very curious to read it. And Ananda went to the bookshop.
In Los Angeles.
Bodhi Tree bookstore.
Yeah, it's since closed down. Oh man, my heart goes out to whenever a spiritual bookstore, an icon of Los Angeles like that, is no longer in business. It's no longer there. But you went to the Bodhi Tree bookstore off of Melrose. I've been there many times myself, and go on. I just get so excited about this part.
The bookstore, he saw a flyer, and it had the advertisement of Swami Premodaya's. I think it was a workshop. Yeah. So he came home with the book. I was really happy. And then he said, hey, listen, because on Saturdays I also did HBO classes. So it was really 6 days a week. So
what's an HBO class? Because in the United States, HBO is a
First Help
network.
Oh, sorry.
EHBO.
EHBO. I almost had it.
But that's also not something they say in the US, correct? Or
no.
Do you? No.
First help course. You know, when
help.
someone is suffocating or having a heart attack, or you know what to do when this happens.
It's the same thing as we would call CPR. So it's the same thing as CPR. Yeah.
CPR.
Okay.
We'll get there.
An HBO course sounds like a class for actors.
I went to the movies.
Yeah.
Well, my husband was taking care of the
Yeah.
So no, but it was an intense training, and he was on his own 6 days a week. And then he was like, hey, I found this flyer and I would really love to go. Maybe on Sunday you can take care of Loka and I can go to the workshop. And I was like, yeah, of course. And he went, and
so just for a fun fact, that was the second time that title was used for an all-day workshop. So one of the offerings at the International Centers of Divine Awakening is all-day workshops with Swami Premodaya. They have been historically. I'm in my 20th year at ICODA. I'm so excited to say that I'm using the word excited a lot today. I must be. I'm so happy, pleased. I'm so full of joy. I feel incredibly blessed to say I'm in my 20th year with Swami Premodaya. And the first ever event was an all-day workshop. All-day workshops are an incredible opportunity to spend a whole day with Swami Premodaya. It often involves question and answer format. He often works very closely with one-to-one with people within a group setting. I've always loved Premodaya's comment that he does not work with groups. He works with individuals in groups. So it's so beautiful, the one-to-one time you get. The first ever event, October 2nd, 2004, was an all-day workshop. And the event you're talking about is an all-day workshop. And we've had many all-day workshops. And twice the title, Everyone Knows Everything, was used. And the 2 times it was used was when I went to the first all-day workshop, October 2nd, 2004, Everyone Knows Everything. And now years later, Ananda Dev's first all-day workshop, Everyone Knows Everything. So that title and that all-day workshop has brought the 3 of us to this conversation.
Yeah, that was
Was it-
2006,
Yeah.
right?
What
Yeah.
was that title also especially triggering for you, Swami Sky? The title?
So just because words mean things nowadays, triggering means something very negative. It means
Okay.
like,
Okay.
it means like I'm triggered, and
Yeah.
you have either a nervous system is triggered, or you're having a stress response or an anxiety response. So we honor people who have triggers, and I'm just gonna say that I know what you meant.
Yes.
Was that title very inspiring? Was it
Yes.
very thrilling? Did it
Yes.
attract you?
Yes.
And the answer is yes. However, it was the face. It was the image. It was the image of Swami Premodaya that was what grabbed me the most. The fact that the title was like, wait a minute, everybody does know everything. Wait a minute, that's true. But it was his face. And then upon going to the website after truly being heart called to that image and seeing that his guru was Osho, it was his face I was attracted to. It was the title was like, but what was going on inside of my heart was the title could have been anything, but it was a very you could say provocative or interesting or fascinating title, and you could feel the ring of truth in it. Like that's something that's so beautiful about Guruji. His words are so precise. There's no extra word. He is the practical guru, partly because of how absolutely effective he is. And one of the ways that he's so effective is in his materials, whether it's a writing, whether it's a title, whether it's a discourse. It's so incredibly effective how precise. Listen to that. It's 3 words. Everyone, that's everyone, knows everything. That's everything. It's like it's like a Zen koan. You can actually go into that. There's no. It takes immediately that removes all like right and wrong, judgment. Everything goes away because everyone knows everything. There's also no ego in it because it's everyone knows everything. I know more than you. Gone. So that's part of the beauty of Swami Premodaya as spiritual teacher is his teachings are so rich. I digress. Anyway, you were telling a very beautiful story, and then I wanted to share the pieces that tie us all together because I love it so much.
Yeah, I love hearing you talk about Swami G Sky.
Same here.
So we were in LA. Ananda went. He came back, and he was like, you could see something happened, but I didn't know. I wasn't there, so I didn't meet Swamiji at that point. I remember he bought a bracelet, and or maybe 2, one for him, one for me.
That is a very smart. That's a smart move.
So I was like, "Oh, this doesn't hurt."
So we have to say, because there's people who may be watching this on YouTube, and this is our 3rd episode, and I think Ananda Dev in the first 2 we are definitely wearing Native American jewelry. So one of our passions individually is that we love Native American jewelry. It just so happens that we got introduced to Native American jewelry and Native culture through Swami Premodaya. Swami Premodaya has a big passion, a overflowing love for Native culture. he has spent some time with some of the most incredible of our recent generation, like Russell Means, and his love and appreciation for Native culture and Indigenous culture everywhere is part of the joy that he shares. And he loves Native American jewelry. He used to say, "Oh, it's part of my mission to try to get everybody to have at least one piece of Native American jewelry, because of just it's so rich. It's all handmade. It's all it's all Native handmade, and that Native culture, they put." They're connected with spirit, so it's not just Claire's. Here we have at the mall or the shopping center, the cheap jewelry center is called Claire's, but it's just his love and his passion. And as I fell in love with my guru, I also have a deep affinity for Indigenous culture. And the first time I bought Native jewelry myself, I bought 2 pieces, and one was a spinner, so it actually was 3 pieces. And so I really fell in love with the Native jewelry myself. It became my own passion. And one of the things that I love about it is its adornment. It's meant for the wearer. It's celebration of life through adornment, through wearing of jewelry. And so we all have collected, and our collections have grown. And man, I keep trying to convince us of, like, when are we going to get an ashram so we live in one place so we can borrow each other's jewelry?
Yeah, hearing you talk about jewelry, that's also one of many ways where you mentioned it, the celebration, but also a bhakti. One of the
Yes.
meanings of bhakti is also sharing. So the sharing of all
Yeah.
this richness, basically. That's also what the guru is in our life. Like,
And I mean, you could also go into, I didn't know this at the time, but I did know it at some point, and kept collecting that the Native American, one of the Dene beliefs is that turquoise is your piece of the sky, the creator's. So yeah, I'm just skying it up. So but it's so enjoyable to as part of my daily, or part of my practice, is to get dressed in a way that feels the celebration of life, the celebration of my spiritual path. It's a way that I connect with my spiritual community and beyond. It's ancestors. It's beyond and beyond. So
Yeah,
I'm way off on a Native American jewelry tangent.
but all the jewelry also really, I mean, it's incredibly beautiful, and everything you said. And then also for me, it reminds me of my guru. So it's wonderful. Every time I look at it, it reminds me of my guru. So
Yeah,
it's
for me too. It's just like
mm.
it also reminds me of you, and I love you so much. So it's like putting on your connecting, twin powers connect with your sangha, with your guru, and with your spiritual path. So it's such a joy. But back to
yeah, LA.
back to
Yeah.
him coming home from an all-day workshop with 2 bracelets, and
Yeah.
whatever your experience or whatever he reported, and tell us what happened and what comes next.
Well, it was 2006. There were no online events yet. I don't think Zoom was active at that time. I don't know.
We actually started our online events before Zoom was created. We used to use a different service, a Fuse, was it called,
Fuse.
before
Right.
Zoom even came around. So we were
Yeah.
way ahead of the times, but you're talking about a time even before that.
Yeah. So my training was coming to an end, and also Ananda had to go back to start work. So he had met Swamiji, and I think for him, that's definitely where his journey started. For me, it was not yet. I was going back without having met Swamiji, and I went back to Belgium, and that was 2006. And I started my journey as yoga teacher, and I started dancing again. And then I think it was 2012 or was it 2011, Ananda?
12.
2012. Ananda got an email saying that Swamiji would come to Europe. And we're like, wow, okay. And so I have this incredible story that, I didn't have to go to the Himalayas to look for my guru, but my guru literally came knocking at my door. So it's amazing. Of course, I didn't know it when he rang the bell, but my Guruji literally came walking through my door at my doorstep in my home in Brussels. So,
And that was the first time you met him.
And that was the first time I met him.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, hello. And he seemed a little tired. I was like, okay. Everything was ready all the way upstairs. I'm so sorry you had to go all those stairs up. But I was very happy. And I did my first workshop with Swamiji in Brussels. And I immediately knew, like, wow, this is different. This is really beyond that. Like, I felt the satsang energy, and I had never felt such an energy before, ever. I knew everything was vibrating, things were happening and shifting, and all the because he's a practical guru, we do exercises and we do self-discovery exercises, and it was really like, wow, what I was really blown away. I didn't know what was hitting me. It was like, whoa. And at that point, after those workshops, Ananda we had a private session. In my first private session with Swamiji, I remember we were sitting on our terrace in the garden. It was September, and I told him, I didn't know Swamiji was an Osho devotee. I didn't know. And I actually, by myself, I started talking about Osho. I said, I read one book of Osho. And I talked about the things that really were intriguing to me, that were like, wow, that's there's so much wisdom in here, and because it was the book, my first Osho book was Love, Freedom, and Aloneness. And I did have question about some things, that, like, about the community, how that can work, because, well, I was still very conditioned at my family, and I knew from what I could see that most of society is not ready to live that way. So how could this work? So that was mainly questions, like, how
do I make sure I don't become a target of those around me if I decide that this is right for me? Because I'm already a weirdo by being a yoga person, and now there's this teacher guru. Like, what?
Yeah, and but already, the guru was because already the yoga guru, it was different, because it's not a spirit, it's a hatha yoga, it's a physical training form, and of course it goes beyond. But this was different. This was really someone that knew about the spiritual realm, and that's a whole new territory. So at that point, I really felt myself stepping into a new realm. Like, what is this? What is going on?
And now in hindsight, you can say it's going from yoga, hatha yoga, a practice, with the body and union, that this is when Guru Bhakti yoga started.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I mean, we don't have the language for that at the time. We don't have the understanding for it. Even if somebody has explained it to you, which is not a thing, nobody explains it to you. But once you are actually plugged into it, and it's actually presented in front of you, it is very different, because you can talk about discipleship and gurus and spiritual paths, but until you're actually on it and living it and it's happening, you're just talking about it. Swamiji often uses the example, if you talk about eating a piece of chocolate, that's very different than eating a piece of chocolate. I think
Yeah,
that was a comment for you Belgians.
yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely where the Bhakti Yoga path started, because actually since that day, since I met Swamiji, not a day had gone by that I was thinking of him. And Ananda, after the workshop, was thinking of becoming a disciple. We had never heard about such a thing. We didn't know what it was. It was all new. It was like, what does that mean, being a disciple, and how does that work? And so it was all very like, yes, jumping into the unknown. And Ananda said, I think I want to do this. And at one point he was like, do you think I'm going crazy? And I was like, no, 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 it's fine, because I recognized uh, everything Swamiji said was true. It's truth coming out. It's truth expressed, and it's fine. You jump. At the same time, I was like, I was not ready yet to jump, but I was very curious. Like, if he jumps and it's okay, then I can jump too. But let him jump first. I was very happy he wanted to jump, because I was very curious myself. But I was like, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. It was, yeah. And then when he jumped, it was his jump, and he was actually very private about it. In the first half a year, he had sessions with Swamiji, and I think he started mystery school curriculum, and
BST.
not yet BST, Beyond Self Training. But we
So
did that.
I have to do a shameless plug, because the Beyond Self Training program is actually enrolling right now.
Oh,
And it is ICODA's course in consciousness, created, developed by Swami Premodaya, and it's now enrolling for March of this year. And it's an incredibly powerful program. And since we are presented by International Centers of Divine Awakening, I just have to say what an incredible program that is, and it is enrolling for the later in 2 months, so later this year.
Yeah,
So,
and
anyway.
it's absolutely life changing. Absolutely Beyond Self Training program. I can highly recommend it. But to get back to you, Shomari, it was probably maybe it was Money Mastery or one of the other ones, because Beyond Self Training program we started together, and then Mystery School curriculum came also later.
okay.
But go ahead,
Yeah.
continue.
So, but what I noticed from when I met Swamiji until a couple of months later, Ananda went to a winter retreat, and I stayed home with the kids and also had to work. So it didn't work out for me to go. But what I noticed, that although what they talked about, Ananda kept very private, I could see changes in him that were really positive. Like, he was more aware, he was more listening, I could see he was getting more happy. Some things were shifting, and only to the good. Like, I think I remember him having a lot of downloads, and that it really gave him insights, and I was like, wow, this is amazing what's happening. But aside from that, I still saw it, okay, it's his discipleship. That's, it is his path. It's not my path, it's his path. But I could see it's good. It's really the right way for him. And that, yeah.
And I just, when you say downloads, you mean like a transmissions from the
Yes.
guru, or you mean
Yes.
the time
Yes.
spent with Swami Premodaya Guruji, the being with him, that the insights and what he was receiving.
Yeah.
We often talked about Guruji's transmissions, just like you were saying, satsang energy. It's like
Yeah.
just being in the presence of your guru has an effect. And just being in that presence has such a way, because guru, bringer of light, it has a way of just shining light on and giving insight to, and that's part of the guru's transmission. So I just want to be clear, when you say you're talking
Yes.
about what he's receiving directly from Swami Premodaya.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so I could see that. So I was like, oh, this is good. and another story part that I left out, and that I really want to share because it's important. Um, when Swamiji was here in Brussels the very first time, Ananda had to go out for work, and then Swamiji left to Amsterdam, and then he had the opportunity to do another workshop in Brussels. So he came back, and Ananda wasn't here, so it was just me and the boys. And Swamiji came back just for a couple of days. I think just 2 nights or three. No, it was 3 or 4, and it is a long time ago. But he had a shirt that he wanted to be cleaned, and he was gonna go and leave Brussels and fly to India. And he said, I would really love to take this shirt, but it needs to be cleaned. Do you have a cleaner? So I brought it to the cleaner, and they said it's gonna be ready next day. And I called, and it wasn't. And I think it was the day after that Swamiji was gonna go. And I called again, and it wasn't ready. And I never been so determined, but I remember it was a really hot day, and I didn't have a driving license then, so I was always biking, a huge bike. And so I biked to the cleaning shop, and I was like, I'm not gonna leave here until I get that shirt, whether it's clean or not. I gotta get that shirt. And I was really determined to leave with the shirt. And it was it was great because I never knew myself so powerful and so determined to really get it done. And I was not going to get out of the shop until I got the shirt. If they have to go there and bring it back, take it back out of the machine, I don't care. You got to give it to me, and I'm not leaving without. So I was really standing there and waiting. And then I guess the guy made some phone calls, and after half an hour, I got the shirt and it was cleaned. And then I rushed back home, biking on this really hot day uphill, and I was sweating like crazy. But I felt so happy. I got the shirt, and I came home, and Swamiji was just really, as I parked the bike, I came into the door, and Swamiji was there with his suitcase ready to leave for India. And I was like, just in time. And I was so happy. And then Swamiji was like, but I packed my suitcase already now. And it didn't matter because I was so happy. I was really happy about it. And later I realized this was my first seva, and that's why I was so happy.
Yeah, and for anybody who might not know the word seva, it's service. It's like as a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner, when you're giving, and it might even be meaningless, and it might not even have. It's not like he said, "Get this," or he just said, "Oh, it'd be nice if I have a clean shirt." But what you find yourself is standing in such love, appreciation, and gratitude for what this teacher is done, for what your guru is. At this point, he's a spiritual teacher, because you didn't take an initiation at that point. But you're just so excited to do the thing, and you find yourself like, oh, like the effects that ends up having on you. It's other people have tremendous passions about football, but this ends up being you finding yourself, you're capable of connection and love and devotion towards the spiritual path, and you have a doorway to that, and you like, oh, inexplicably, it's just a shirt, but now you find yourself more in love, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It functions. It just functions in itself. Like it's such a joy. It was such an enormous joy. Like, because I did have 2 children, so I did a lot for the kids, and that you get a lot of joy out of that too. But it's different. It was really like, wow. I unexpected how much joy I was getting out of that. Yeah.
That's what we call, I enjoy calling the miracle of the master. Is there's another one of Swami Premodaya's quotes, like, a disciple is surprised every single day. If you're living your discipleship, every day is a surprise, and you're grateful for the miracle of every day. So somehow getting this done brought you tremendous joy and happiness. Well, that's the miracle of the master.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's something, in that moment, I just enjoyed it. And it's something I realized later, like, oh, it was already, discipleship was actually already at work. Only the recognition wasn't there yet. My recognition wasn't there yet.
So when did your recognition happen?
So then for this, I think, so that was when Ananda came back from winter retreat, and he said it was amazing. You have
That
to
might have
come.
been Israel. Was that Israel?
No,
Oh,
no.
so it was a
Yeah,
winter retreat.
later.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It was a
Oh,
winter.
so it would have been in California in the mountains.
Yes.
Idlewild,
Yeah.
yes. December probably
Mhm.
2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
came back from the winter retreat,
Yeah.
or he came back from the winter retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of months later. It was, yeah. And he said, you have to come next time. It's really amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but I still have to work. And then it worked out that it was possible for me to come to the summer retreat. I think I needed to arrive a day later because I was still touring and performing, and but it worked out with the flights. I was going to go a day later. It's fine, and at least I can have that part.
And what
And
was the name of the venue?
the name of the retreat place was Dancing Deer.
Yeah, which we had never been to before. So this is the first time we had ever been to any location that started or had at any point the word dance in it.
It was amazing because, first of all, when I was 10 years old, one of my teachers told me that my animal is a deer. And I never dug into it, whether it's true or not, but it rang with me. It was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I feel connected to deer. There's something there. And then the dancing was like, oh, yeah, I'm a little bit of a dancer.
Now, just so we also say that, because it didn't occur to me until right now, when we say you're a dancer and you've been doing ballet, you were part of a professional dance. You've literally toured
Yeah.
the world. You were
Yeah.
I mean, when we say you're a dancer, it was for a very long time and very successful. Like you literally have toured, I don't know how many countries, but it's been all over. So dance has not only, it's not like in other words, it's not a hobby, and it's not something that you did a little bit. You were a very, very serious dancer, and your company toured all over.
Yeah, I had a professional dance career for 22 years,
Wow.
which is quite long for dancers because
Yeah.
the physicality is really high, the demand is high of the body. So often dancers quit around 30. Contemporary dancers go on a little bit longer, but still it's 22 years is really long because contemporary dancers then often start later. So I had pieces of both. And yeah, I danced professionally in Germany in a company for 3 years, and then in Austria, in Vienna for 5 years. So those were really long fixed jobs in theaters. And then I started working freelance with a lot of different choreographers. And with those, I was really touring, all over France, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Denmark, Norway,
So
Canada.
Canada.
So when we say dancing deer, you basically you found, so at some point in your youth, a deer was your spirit animal, and dancer has been your whole life and career. So it's not a I just wanted to emphasize that this summer retreat, the first and only time we were at Dancing Deer, and you were there, and the how that must have been for you to be like, wait, what? It's at Dancing Deer.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I felt like, oh, this is meant for me. Yeah, I'm a dancing deer. I have to be here. And I remember the first night I arrived, we were dancing all evening. I remember dancing in that circle. And at one point, you were playing tabla, but maybe that was the second day.
I did end up playing tabla that we had. So we had blaring music in the most exuberant and joyful way, and it's got to be the most dancing we have ever done at a retreat. And yes, I ended up playing tabla, classical Indian music, on the other day. Yeah.
And then I remember on the second day, Nova became a disciple. She had her initiation, and we stayed up really late at night. I think it was even 2 a.m. or something, but it
I
was
think it was
1
later.
a.m. later, and it was really nice. It was wonderful. That night energy, in truth, it was wow. I was baiting.
As the ICODA lineage holder, and as since I was at the first ever event, October 2nd, 2004, and I made myself the historian over these years. I just everything I just absorbed, and especially so in the very very beginning we didn't record the first ever event we recorded, and then the first couple of public events there until I could convince Swami Premodaya that we should record. There weren't recordings, so I was like, I got to remember everything. So I just basically made myself the historian, and I mark Dancing Deer Farm as a true mark of historic change at ICODA, because up until Dancing Deer Farm, we adhered to the timing and the schedule very, very, very pinpoint, like maybe a couple minutes over, a little bit here and there. But at that Dancing Deer retreat, we went we just went all night. We just like, and it just, Swami Premodaya was so beyond abundant. Like we actually went beyond 2 a.m. because I remember that to take care of myself, because I had sleep issues at the time, I went to bed, and that was around 2. And I think you guys went till 3 or 4. And it just was, it was that the retreat was so alive and so rich that there was just nobody ever wanted to stop, and it just kept going, and it was just so flowing and beautiful. So I just wanted to say that part of that retreat since then, I mean, Swami Premodaya is very freely gone beyond the time again and again, hours sometimes, where we'll have, a class, but we'll go overtime, and it's like we get so much more than what we registered for. It's been beautiful, but I please keep going.
Yeah. So that was the first full day for me on the retreat.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Wow, amazing. Yeah. And then the next day, I think, well, it doesn't matter. The day before I left on the Monday. Yeah. And Ananda in the morning asked me, "So, are you thinking of becoming a disciple?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. It's possible, but you have to give me some time. It might take a long time before I get there." You know, and that was the morning. And then we had a meditation. And in that meditation, meditation by Swami Premodaya, it was a recording. And in that meditation, I experienced such a connection to the eternal, to something huge. I was sitting there in an awe and a bliss, and I didn't even want to move out of my sitting position. I was like, I can sit here forever. I'll just sit here forever. And it was really divine. It was really incredible. And then people started talking, and I just couldn't help grasping my heart, because it was pounding so strongly, and I felt this divine energy moving, and it was so enjoyable and incredible. And then I went to talk to Swamiji. I came and sat next to him on the chair, and it was so clear. It was so clear that I wanted to become a disciple. I was ready. And so it was only an hour before I said, "That might take a really long time before I become a disciple."
It took an eternity experiencing.
That's true.
Yeah.
It took an
Yeah.
eternity. It's very long. And then I asked, and it really, nothing has ever felt so clear. It was really clear. It was so clear. That was what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to be, that And it was quite funny because it was so clear. I immediately, when I asked him, Swamiji said yes. And I remember going to sit in front of him, like, okay, you can do it now. And he was like, now. So, yeah, later today. So, and then
And
Swamiji said,
it was the first impromptu
yeah,
initiation. Yeah.
yeah. Swamiji said, let's do it in an hour.
Yeah, that has never happened
Yeah.
before or since.
Yeah. And so that's when I became a disciple. And I remember being on the plane back and so in love with Swamiji, looking at his picture and thinking, wow, I'm so blessed. How is this possible? Yeah.
And your practice has been growing and growing ever since. And like you said, insights and awareness and becoming a conscious of. And so that was 2012, you said? Or is that 2000? No, that was 2013.
Yes.
So that was 2013. So that's 10 years ago
Yeah.
this summer. So you're almost at 10 years of discipleship. And one of the things Swami Premodaya has announced recently is he now has advanced disciples. So we basically, we don't have a dogmatic system. It's not like a karate class where you take so many classes and you get a blue belt, and then you do enough, high kicks and you get a red belt. It's not that there's systems of structure, but there is identification, and it's helpful for people to understand. Like advanced disciple, in other words, it isn't something you earn by doing so many hours of meditation or doing it's a recognition. Swami Premodaya has talked about publicly many times that it's a recognition. So he as soon as he sees something, he immediately shares it with us. And to help people, he basically says, there's a non-disciple or that's on a spiritual path. That's a student. And then there's somebody who recognizes their guru, their teacher, and takes a formal initiation into the guru-disciple relationship. That's guru, that's disciple. And then he says that a disciple all the way to the end of disciple who's completely lost in their spiritual path, who's completely lost in the master, who is living discipleship completely, that practice is so full that is a devotee. A devotee is a finished, it's a disciple who all the way to the nth degree, he's said. You think about it as how I kind of put it into terms is, a disciple's still doing a lot of practicing, but the devotee is now living. It's like it is so imbibed, it's so taken in that your path, the understanding, your practice. One of the Swami Premodaya's practical teachings is you're already practicing. Your life is spiritual practice. So everything you do, everything you think, everything you feel, everything you consciously or unconsciously do, that's your practice. So a disciple is trying to get to the practice where they're being more awareness, more aliveness, more consciousness, and a devotee is entirely lost to where they're living that. And one thing that has come out recently in his guruship is he has recognized advanced disciples. It's still a disciple. You're still working hard. You're still practicing, but it's more advanced. You're living your discipleship for real, much more. It's not so much in every moment that you're struggling to try to live discipleship and try to focus on spiritual path. It's been the spiritual path has been eaten and digested more to where you're living it. And he has called that an advanced disciple. So he has named 3 advanced disciples in his Sangha, in the Sangha of ICODA. And you are an advanced disciple. He has recognized and acknowledged and talked about publicly how you're living as an advanced disciple. And I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, because I think it's really helpful for people, and because I just love to hear about it. So once you were acknowledged and publicly recognized as an advanced disciple, what was that like for you? What was the experience of that?
Well, I think it started already before, because before that, I already felt things are shifting. Things are, I started seeing myself that there is nothing else. Life is God, God is life. Life is my guru. There is no life for me without my guru. That everything was contained in that, and everything is is full of my guru, full of God. And I would look at people, and I still have that. I look at people and I see my guru, and I talk to them, and my guru is with me, and it's it's his presence is all over, and it's so wonderful, because everything is the same, but everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that recognition that all is my guru is all, and it's always having him with me. And then it's no longer work, it's the joy, it's the miracle of it, and being able to live that is so wonderful. It's what a gift, what a blessing. And it's really recognizing for real that Swami Premodaya is my guru, and that's for life, it's for eternity. And yeah,
It's also the beautiful part of, the all is one. It's living. It was one of the things that we talked about is the responsibility of it. So it's being acknowledged as an advanced disciple, and in seeing that all is one, you now have a responsibility to live that. And we're human, we fall into all kinds of nonsense, but you have a responsibility now that you've seen and with your own eyes, and you have really lived the understanding, and it's become your own seeing that all is one. It's like, well, now you really have a responsibility to not fall into judgment, to maintain compassion. It's actually the immediate, because I'm also an advanced disciple, I should mention that. Was also recognized as an advanced disciple. So you and I have spoken as advanced disciples about advanced discipleship. And one of the things that we shared in so much was the responsibility of it. You have a responsibility to live your what you know. You have to live what you know. And that is living your discipleship. And so I have a responsibility to live my discipleship. I have a responsibility to live my understanding, and honoring all as one, because it's not an idea. It's something that you see. It's something that I see. And so therefore, to live the responsibility of that, not only to your Sangha members, especially to yourself, but also in and especially with your guru. It's like, once you know this is truly your guru, then to indulge all the doubt and all the nonsense, which just keeps you in drama, it keeps you in your mind. It's like, do I want to, engage in that, or do you want to live the responsibility of seeing the divine domain operating as all there is, and as the only thing that is? No more. Basically, you can no longer indulge the debate, because now you've seen the truth for yourself, and so you have a responsibility to live that.
Yeah, and it's it's the same with, if you get freedom, you get responsibility, you know. I mean, it's the same. You become advanced disciple, you have responsibility. And yeah, that was very palpable when I just became a disciple, an advanced disciple. It was really like, okay, and now I have to live up to that, you know. That's where I am, and there's no pretending I'm not there. That's where I am. And that is the responsibility. Like you said, it's really to be where you are, and not play those games anymore. And there is no doubt. So there's no need to play any doubting game. Um,
And Ananda Dev, I think you can comment on this as well, because one of the things that I noticed so significantly in Shomari Dev living her advanced discipleship is the precision. Like, you can hear how solid and how accurate, you can hear and feel what she's saying. You know, it's so direct, it's so deliberate, it's so, and it's also so open and accessible in the way she speaks and shares herself. It's like she's gotten so clear in relating as herself and sharing her understanding, while also at the same time being able to receive. It's like the natural part of her just living what she knows as herself is so evident.
Yeah, absolutely. She's way more relaxed, way more joyful, way more herself. It's I there was we were at a party, and pictures were taken, and I was looking at the pictures because I had to send them. And every picture I saw her on, it was very striking for me to see, like, oh wow, she the, the, the relaxedness, the Shomariness was just shining through. It was very easy, very evident, and also in our day to day relating, life got easier for me too. So,
Shamari, it is really enjoyable is such a, it's, I want to have much bigger words. It's a blessing to experience your radiance, your joy, your rock solidness, your strength, and you're just the brilliance of your radiating happiness, which is like rested in also this gentle relaxation, has been such a gift to me personally, but also many people at our sangha have commented on it and what it's done for them. And then the other piece that's so um, sweet is how, even with strangers, even with, or people you maybe are, acquaintances with, the effects of your advanced discipleship on your life is so profound to witness. But it's also experienced by anybody who is around you or becomes around you. And that has been something I've it's like having something really enjoyable to witness. So
yes, it's wonderful to notice how people, because I have no self-doubt anymore. I used to doubt everything, and I know I can just be myself, and that's the best one to be. and and there's no comparison. The comparison game stopped, and there's no good and bad. No, it's just me. And there's all that nonsense of comparing, or I have to do better, or I have to do that. No, it's fine. It's just me. Just be aware, do as good as you can, and that's that. And be honest, be truthful, be real. And that's what my aim is now. Be real. Are you real? Be real. Check in, be real. And that's so much more loving. It's so much more loving to myself, and that makes me more loving to others. And I've noticed how other people reacted on me is they really feel like they can relax when I'm there. They really feel like they can trust me, and there's an openness that comes, and then it's there's wonderful exchanges of people that I wouldn't expect to open up, and they all of a sudden start talking about spiritual things. And there are people that normally are not busy with spirituality, but they feel with me the door is open, and that they can tell their stories of their experiences. Like, I think this is true, but if I say this to my brother or sister or mother or friend, they will think I'm crazy. But they know it's true, because life is a mystery, and life is, there's so much we don't know yet, and there's so much possible. And with all the teachings in conventional life tell us not to open ourselves to that. And I noticed that since being an advanced disciple, people are opening up much more to me in that sense. And that is because I emanate my guru, and I
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
I
a lot of the richness of what you're saying, and this is part of the example of advanced discipleship, is you're literally describing living the teachings and understandings that Swami Premodaya. He's the one that works with us to drop all judgments, to drop all comparison, to be able to know yourself truly, to be able to live your aliveness, to increase and grow your awareness and consciousness. So those are literally all practices from Swami Premodaya. So beautiful.
yes, I mean, everything everything comes from my guru. So,
That's
and
my
also
experience too.
another thing that I noticed, is that with the advanced discipleship, also humbleness. I
Mhm.
it makes me very humble, because I recognize that, uh, I can just see like a part of the elephant, and that's just a part of the elephant, and there's so much more going on. There's the elephant, and then there's the space where the elephant lives, and there's the country, and then there's the world, and then there's the universe. And what do I just see this little part of the elephant. So that recognition is really
I've,
humbling.
I've always loved this example too, and I've heard it from Swami Premodaya, and he's quoted it from somewhere
Yes.
else. So I don't know where the original example actually was come from, if it comes from Buddhism or Hinduism, but
I
it's
also
also,
learned it from Swamiji,
yes, because it also depends on where where you're looking at the elephant. Because somebody will be like, "This thing has got giant ears," and somebody else will be like, "What do you mean, no giant nose?" You're like, if you're looking at it from the back, you don't know that you know what's going on at the front.
yeah,
If all you could see is a tusk,
yeah,
and all you could see is a tail, like, you have very different views.
yeah.
It just tells you why you should be so humble, is because your perspective, it can't possibly even grasp
Mhm.
what's going on. So it is very humbling. It's also one of the other humbling factors is just how much joy and happiness you're like, I get to, like, life gets to be this good. It gets to be an actual celebration. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing I learned from Swamiji, and I really understood it now. I can choose happiness. I
Mhm.
mean, they don't teach you that at school.
No, they don't. In fact, they teach you that there's a ton of problems,
Yeah.
and that life is basically I mean, look at Osho's, one of Jai Osho, Osho's quotes, which is, life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived.
Mm.
Speaking of problems to be solved and a mystery to be lived, we did promise people that we'd talk a little bit about. I know we've been talking for a little while, but I love chatting with you so much, and Bhakti Talk Podcast. So speaking of love, tell us, from both of you. I'd like to hear at least a little bit about what it's like to be with a partner, and married, and on a spiritual path, and you happen to be on the same spiritual path. So you're disciples, who are married, on the same spiritual path. So maybe you can help people with whatever you would like to share, but certainly what has helped you in traveling together.
Well,
It's definitely smart to let her go first. Yeah, I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
that.
I wanted to let her go first. So yes, go first. Well, I, I go first. there's just one thing I wanted to say.
He is a risk taker. That's one thing you can say. I mean, he took discipleship first. He might as well go first. He's yeah, test the water, see how it goes. I love the risk taker. Go for it.
Having this podcast we're having now and hearing you speak, Shomari, it's very striking to hear everything you say. Of course, I've been there. I walked with you, but we literally walked next to each other. We talk, we know each other, but everything you shared now and also how you shared it is also very revealing to me. Things you said now are some of the things I also heard the first time, like everyone else. And that shows me very much also, yes, we are together on this path, but sometimes you see each other, sometimes you don't see each other. We all have our own experiences. You have your experience, I have my experience, especially when you talk about yoga. Of course, I knew it was very important to you to come have the Bikram yoga teacher training, but how you spoke about it now, it was even way more important for you than I realized at the time. And so now you sharing that, I realized like, oh wow, yes, of course this was incredibly important for you. But then to add to being on a spiritual path together, like having the same guru, being disciples, it's yeah, it's so enriching in so many ways. Mm, if you know, if you have something to immediately share, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll take over. Yeah, no, for me, it's very, very clear that the support of Ananda during discipleship, during growth, because there are challenges you meet in discipleship, because you really are encouraged to turn every stone. You're encouraged to really look at yourself, at what you want, at who you are, at everything. Like Swamiji really encourages to look for ourselves, to think for ourselves, to verify, to not just take it for granted. So it is a path where sometimes you struggle,
Oh, sure. And
always with
you
yourself.
can't change what you aren't aware of.
Yeah,
So if there's whatever's going on in you, you have to become aware of it. And
yeah,
becoming aware of it is an arduous process. And a lot of times it involves aspects we don't want to become aware of. Nobody
yeah.
wants to actually, go, ooh,
I'm
that's not
selfish.
so good. Yeah, I'm selfish, or I'm judgmental, or I have an inner critic that runs my life.
Mhm.
That's not fun. That's
Oh,
hard.
yeah,
So, but there's no changing. You cannot change anything you're not aware of. So awareness is always the first step. And when
yeah,
you first become aware of it, it almost always involves at the minimum a level of discomfort.
yeah.
So you were saying,
And in that discomfort, it's really a support to have someone next to you that understands what's going on, what is happening with you, why this is happening, and also understands why it's good that this is happening. And so having that support is enormous. And of course, there is the Sangha, and the Sangha really also gives that support, especially now that we're doing online meetings with each other. I really, from the first meeting, I feel the benefits of that, coming together as spiritual people and really supporting each other on that path. It's enormous. The support we're getting from that is just huge. But having a partner is even, that's great, because he's actually literally there every day. And also because, well, we live in Brussels, we don't live in Los Angeles, so I cannot just drive over to any of the Sangha. So we are I mean, I can always call, I know that. But it is good to have someone here next to you, and that's an incredible support. So aside from this support that is really crucial, has been very crucial in my growth. But also there is the it's very inspiring. It was Ananda has been very disciplined in his meditations from day one, and that has been so inspiring to me, because even though I was very disciplined in my practice, my yoga practice, my dance practice, it still is not easy to do the discipline on all levels.
Sure.
You work on it, but seeing Ananda from, I don't know how many years ago, I think you started meditating quite early. Yeah. And at that time, I wasn't ready yet to meditate. I was still doing a lot of different things, and I thought I have to do all these things. Well, it's okay. But those things, for example, that it was very inspiring to me already then to see how disciplined he is, how it helps him, how that benefits us. So that's the inspiring part. And then also having a partner that actually works on himself, that actually uh, looks at life, at what is going on, and actually is growing, is willing to grow, is open to that, is open minded. That is just amazing. That is like an amazing gift. I think if I had a partner that wouldn't be so open minded, that wouldn't be willing to work on himself, that wouldn't be willing to grow spiritually, that would be a really tough journey. And
It would
that's
be. That'd be really, really hard because you're so that's one of the things that I'd like to comment on is one of the aspects of your relationship that's so enjoyable is also the same aspect of your parenting that is so inspiring, which is when it comes to your spiritual path, it comes first.
mm,
So it's you, Ananda Dev, your spiritual path is what's important, and you, Shomari Dev, it's your spiritual path that's what's important, and then our relationship probably comes third. It certainly comes after the boys. So it's like by not making it all about you,
Mm.
and by respecting and honoring your path first, that is one of the keys to such an incredible relationship on a path that is about reflection. Because one of the practical teachings from Swami Premodaya is you can't know yourself without other people.
Mm.
So but to really go in and to really know yourself is a challenging path, and if you're going to be partners on that path, it is that it's your path comes first, and then as parents your children come first. It's not, and your children as individuals, not as objects you own so that they will live the way you say. It's like that is an honored sacred being, and it is their life. It's not a life that I own. They are not an extension of me, and that's how you live your parent your that's how you live as a parent,
mm,
but it's also how you live as a spiritual practitioner. And so I've always loved the term practitioner, since Guruji is clued us in because he said it at a public event, that it's so beautiful because practitioner has the word practice in it, and it's like you're always practicing, you're always practicing anyway. And by making that practice the priority in your life, everything else gets in its rightful
Mm.
proportion, and it makes it less about who's right and who's wrong, because you're guaranteed to have challenges and issues. That's part of relating, especially in a marriage and all those things. But because your spiritual path, your spiritual practice comes first, it puts everything else in its right proportion. It makes it, from what you guys have each said to me, you can deal with whatever comes up because you
mm,
already know what your priorities are.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's about Guru, it's about God, that is first. And looking at that, then all the other things become very, very manageable. And what Shamari already said, um, you know what is important for each other, but also for yourself personally. And one fun thing, actually, not it wasn't that long ago actually that Shamari told me, like, I'm not disciplined. I was like, what are you talking about? You're not disciplined. And that was one very simple thing I could just, well, it was very obvious, But
it's also, that's one of Swamiji's teachings. It's like, but you're already, like, for example, he uses the word service. Service is part of the spiritual path, and service of another, seva, or serving the spiritual path, or serving somebody on the spiritual path, is the highest, right? But he's also so practically said, but you're already serving something anyway. So in that sense, when you look at it, even if you're living in chaos, that's a kind of discipline. And so you were able to insightfully reflect back to Shomari the discipline she is living, and she was able to see that and go, oh yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about being together with a disciple, living, being married to one, is Swami Premodaya is the practical guru. So he's given so many things to us that we can actually use in our daily life, and which, for example, on planning, on communication, on understanding our personalities, and on expectations and desires,
on parenting.
There's so many things that Swami Premodaya showed us, that we learned, that we started to understand. I was like, oh, that's why we have a conflict about it. Oh, but then we can just solve it. So it's been on the practical level, to be a disciple and be married to a disciple is just such an advantage, because you can really use the spiritual understandings in a practical way.
Yeah, and the more we live as disciples together, that's also something Gurudev has told us, and us personally also many times, like, live as disciples. And the more we live as disciples, the easier everything is also.
Yeah, the easier, because your priority is the spiritual path. It's like there's not such a stress about anything else. It's not about, everything just takes its right priority. That's what I've found, being focused on the spiritual path myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything? I think we were about ready to wrap it up. Anything else you guys want to share about that?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me, and Jai Premodaya.
Jai
Premodaya.
Yeah,
wonderful. It was an absolute pleasure. I learned a lot from you, Shomari. For real.
And I still am.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I Shomari Dev, thank you so much for being our first guest. It's so wonderful to spend any time with you. I love you very much. Ananda, my brother, I love you very much. It's such a pleasure to meet like this, to actually talk about our spiritual path, to relish in the love for our beloved guru, Swami Premodaya. And we certainly honor all spiritual seekers. We just want to take a moment to let you know that the Bhakti Talk podcast is presented by the International Centers of Divine Awakening, which was founded by our beloved guru, Swami Premodaya. You can visit our website at i-coda.org, and new episodes of Bhakti Talk podcast will come out every other Monday. So be sure to subscribe to be notified of new content.
And we also have a full calendar of events at ICODA, including satsang and spiritual growth seminars, as well as transformational programs, courses, incredible wealth of spiritual wisdom teachings from Swami Premodaya.
And thank you for listening today. Anybody who's tuning in for the first time or a repeat listener, we certainly thank you. Again, a special gratitude, appreciation, love to our beloved guru sister, Shomari Dev, for joining us for this fantastic, lovely talk. I so enjoyed listening to your story. Thank you to our beloved Sangha again, and to all spiritual seekers everywhere. And of course, one more time, an ecstatic thank you to our beloved guru, Swami Premodaya. Jai Jai.
Jai Jai Swami Premodaya.